in my whole life or do I want something different? This job opportunity came up, and so I applied, and
okay, we're going to go ahead and get started so we can try to keep close to schedule. First, I want to say thank you all for coming to the Free One to Free Them All. And I thought we were going to have a moderator, so they might come in, but we're just going to go with the flow. You want to introduce yourself? Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Oh.
Are you moderating?
Sorry.
Are we just going on, or are you moderating?
I was just making sure all the AV stuff is good for you.
Well, we know how to work under technicals. I am Pauline Rogers. I am from the state that hubs on all of this country's consequential fights and battles, and that is the great state of Mississippi. I am formerly incarcerated. I do reentry work, the longest serving reentry provider in our state, hubbing 36 years of zero recidivism. And we are here to talk about freeing one is to free them all and get feedback, give you what we have, and open the floor and let you ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, can I get your name one more time?
What was that? Pauline Rogers, Rogers.
Hello. All right. I'm Imani Mfalme. I'm Executive Director of Community Defense of East Tennessee, and I'm also a national trainer for Debug Silicon Valley. In both organizations, basically into mass incarceration by community organizing and taking organizing from the streets into the actual courtroom. In Knoxville, Tennessee, where I'm from, we want to change the punishment system into a more transformative, restorative system. And some of the campaigns that we have been working on and that we've actually gained on are like expanding the drug school zone, ending a mandatory 51-year life sentence for children, which I'll talk about that campaign. We changed our bail mandate in our city. We're the only city in our state that was able to do that. And we've done a lot of work, and we continue to do that by community organizing and changing state laws and changing the narrative in our communities. So what I'm going to talk about first is the organizing model that we use, which is called participatory defense. Have any of you heard of this? Okay, is anybody practicing this? Yes. Okay. You want to shout out your hubs or where you're practicing? Okay. We'll be up there at the end of the month. Okay. Yeah, we'll be there. I'm based in New York City and with providing. Okay. So this model, so what is participatory defense? This was an organizing model developed by families in San Jose, California, and it's for people facing charges, their families and communities to impact the outcome of cases and transform the landscape of power inside the courtroom. So basically all of that activism, organizing, we're taking that inside and letting the people know that they can actually change that system. And here's the origin story.
This is my favorite protest shirt. It says, "Protect your people." We made it in the basement of our community center. I've worn it at rallies, at protests, at marches, at candlelight vigils with families who have lost loved ones to police violence. I've seen how this ethic of community organizing has been able to change arresting practices, hold individual officers accountable, and allow families to feel strong and supported in the darkest moments of their lives. But when a family would come to our center and say, my loved one got arrested, what can we do? We didn't know how to translate the power of community organizing that we saw on the streets into the courts. We figured we're not lawyers, and so that's not our arena to make change. And so despite our belief in collective action, we would allow people that we cared about to go to court alone. 9 out of 10 times, they couldn't afford their own attorney. And so they have a public defender who was doing heroic work, but was often under-resourced and stretched bare with too many cases. They would face prosecutors aiming for high conviction rates, mandatory minimum sentences, and racial bias baked into every stage of the process. Facing those odds, stripped away from the power of community, unsure how to navigate the courts, over 90% of people that face a criminal charge in this country will take a plea deal, meaning they'll never have their fatal day in court that we talk about in television shows and in movies. And this is the untold part of the story of mass incarceration in America, how we became the largest jailer in the world. Over 2 million people currently incarcerated in this country, and projections that say 1 out of 3 black men will see the inside of a prison cell at some point in their life on this trajectory. But we have a solution. We decided to be irreverent to this idea that only lawyers can impact the courts, and to penetrate the judicial system with the power, intellect, and ingenuity of community organizing. We call the approach participatory defense, and the results have been remarkable. We've seen charges get dismissed, sentences significantly reduced, acquittals won at trial, and sometimes it has been literally life-saving. And when we win a case, when we get a sentence reduced, or a charge dropped, or we win an acquittal, that person who's been a name on the board comes to the meeting. And when their name comes up, they're given an eraser. And they walk over to the board, and they erase their name. We're training organizations all over the country now in participatory defense. And we have a national network of over 20 cities. And it's a church in Pennsylvania. It's a parents association in Tennessee. It's a youth center in Los Angeles. And with all the hubs, we still use one metric that we invented. It's called time saved. It's a saying that we actually still say at weekly meetings. And what we say when a family comes to the meeting for the first time is the system is designed to give your loved one time served. That's the language the system uses to quantify time of incarceration. But if you engage, if you participate, you could turn time served into time saved. That's them home with you, living the life they should be living.
Okay, so the voice you heard was Raj, and he's the co-founder of Silicon Valley Debug. And again, we do this across the nation. We train everyday community members. You don't have to have a law background. This is for families. This is for the grandmothers, the mothers, the sisters, the brothers, everybody that's fighting to bring someone home or to keep them out of a cage. And so we did this. We started in 2016 as a network. And it was 8 of us, 8 different cities, and we came up with these shared learnings. So no matter if you go to any participatory defense meeting, you'll be able to, it'll feel the same wherever you go. And our learnings are, it's a trust-based process, right? So you have community members coming in at their most vulnerable time to other community members. This is a community space. The courtroom is a space for the DAs and the attorneys, you know, parole board. We have created a space for community. We do not know everything with the law, but collectively we can problem solve. And so what you'll have is families that are sitting in this in person around a table or on Zoom, and they all have different charges. They're all at different stages. And what we do is through our collective knowledge, we problem solve. We also want to humanize our people inside the system. The system looks at our people and they see a name and the charge, and that's it. And we know that that's our brother who's a father, who goes to work every day, who takes care of his children. We bring that into the courtroom. We have that knowledge of that person, and we humanize that person in the courtroom. Our meeting spaces are non-judgmental. Each hub has points of unity that they agree on, and they are allowed to create that space how they want to for their community and how they need to for their community. But we also want the families that are coming through those doors, their experience is the center, not what we have been through as formerly incarcerated and directly impacted people. We center the family's experience. Because this is community members, we also let them know that you have to have endurance to do this work. This is not for the faint of heart. You have to use your mind, body, and soul to do this work. And we have to, let the mothers and the grandmas know, hey, if you need to take a break, it's okay. We're here. We will be here when you come back. As you do this work as a community member, you will learn the law. And we move power from the system and we move that into the community. And we also let people know that a win looks different. So for some people, they're charged and they're facing life without parole. But by the advocacy of their family and the community, they could end up with life with parole. So we let them know that, not everything is going to be dismissed. Not everyone's going to come home. But a win could be, hey, I was found guilty, but we fought for him to be placed close enough so his family could visit. These are the ways that we are changing the system and changing outcomes of cases. We have principles that every hub lives by. Family and community strength play a pivotal role in stopping and reducing incarceration. We know the system is created to be isolating, and we flip that, and we make sure that we have people going to court with you, that you have people that can go to your attorney's appointments with you, that you're prepared to go to those appointments. And it makes a difference in cases and trials and motions when the court sees people sitting with you and know that, you're not there alone. We're not a service model. We support the families doing this model. And because we know that once the family, they go through this process and they learn it, they're going to have that power. And so whether they come back to our meetings or not, they can take that power out into the world. And that's how we're going to build a movement, and that's how we're going to end mass incarceration. We take the individual cases, we hold the system accountable, and we're ultimately going to make that systemic change. We also have foundational understandings because, again, you all know this, you know the system, but we have community members that come into this work. Not everyone that does this work is going to be an abolitionist, but they can do this work. And what Raj says is that as they continue to do this work, they will eventually move that way. Again, our foundational understandings, family and community led, grow in a space that reflects and nourishes. Again, not being judgmental and mindful of the roles that we maintain. We also have to have a sincere delicacy. A lot of times we get in this space and we're so passionate because what we have been through that we might put that on to a case that is familiar to us. But we also have to understand that we cannot project those feelings and emotions and that trauma on the person that we're trying to help right now. And allowing them to be in that space and be centered and have that experience. We also tell people that when they want to do this work, that you have to have the capacity to follow through, because you don't want to be there and tell a family you're going to do something, or say I'm going to go to a court date and you don't show up. Then we want to give them clarity about what this is all about, the root causes, and that this is just slavery extended. And you have to understand that to do this work. This model can be used at any point within the criminal system. It can be used after arrest. This is a felony court procedure from California. Yours is going to look different wherever state you're from. But the green bubbles here are like points where when we come in and do a 2-day training with a community member, we teach you those points of intervention of how you as a community member, as a family, can intervene in any part of this process. These are just some of the points. If you were going to intervene, like between arrest and arraignment, we would tell them like to document, the incident, because sometimes somebody will have an encounter and it's 5 years before they actually go to trial. And you want to keep those details, exactly what happened and whatever you said to the police that day, you want it to be the same 5 years later. And so we'll tell them, go into your attorney's office, write everything down, make sure you have that, you read that, you know that it doesn't change. We prepare them to go meet with their attorney, so they're not going to the attorney's office, not understanding what's going on, and then calling back 10 times. We prepare them with questions. We have them send it before time so the attorney can have those, and we teach them to follow up. These are just, and I'm sorry I'm rushing because we got set time, so I'm looking at my timer. But this is the stuff that the community will learn during their 2-day training. And so for community defense, once you start to do this model, you'll start to see those holes in the system. You'll start to say, like, yeah, we know the whole system is not right. But you start to see where you can, like, break down that system. And so we call that cases to campaigns. So the one I'm going to talk about is how community defense changed the sentencing time for children. We had one of the harshest sentencing laws in the U.S. where if a child was sentenced to life, they had to do 51 years before they could receive parole. So no one in Tennessee ever lived that long to see that. And so actually this picture is the first child that that got sentenced. He actually got sentenced to life plus 10 years. His name is Rico, and that's his mother. She passed last year, unfortunately. We got this case in probably 17. He still calls today. But we knew that this was cruel and unusual. We started getting more cases like this, and we were like, we have to do something. You cannot put a child in a cage and tell them you have to do 51 years before you're eligible for parole. So we started advocating at the legislation. We started trying to meet with politicians who was like, yeah, that's wrong. We know that it only went from 25 to 51 because of the crime bill, and they were willing to put forth bills. Of course, we're in Tennessee, which home of the private prison, so they're like, nah, keep them in. So none of the legislation actually went through, but we were actually trying to work with our legislators, trying to get that changed. This is a picture of Quentin. He's also another person that's actually still in, and he's done, his mom said, I think it's 26 years at this point. I already said that. I'm trying to hurry up, sorry. So at the same time, while we're seeing these cases, of course, the public defender's office is seeing the cases, and a public defender by the name of Jonathan Harwell and the public defender's office decided to challenge this law constitutionally. So they took the law and challenged it at the state Supreme Court and said that this sentence is cruel and unusual punishment, and it does not really give any opportunity for relief. As he was doing that in their space, right, we were watching his arguments, and the judges agreed. He made all the points there. Minds are not developed, all the points that we know. And the judge was like, yeah, but you also have public perception. And so that clicked for me. I was like, oh, okay, we need to change the narrative as a community. And so that's when we knew it was time for us to step in and activate. So at that point, you have the public defender's office, and we started fighting as a community, and we decided we wanted to tell the story of Quentin Sanders, and we decided to do a documentary with Debug. This was our think tank. We knew we wanted to educate. We had to educate, like, the people just in our communities. They just don't know, like, how we got here. And so we had to, like, break it down for them. And all the points we made about, like, Joe Biden, being that he was, like, the actual president, how our system and the DA that was in Shelby County and every child that had life in Shelby County was Black. Like, we had to showcase all of this for our community, for them to be moved and motivated to change. So his story is actually on YouTube. It's called Redeemable Son. We created this, and then we took this across the state and had community screenings and discussions. We showed the film, and then we had those real hard discussions because you had people that were for it and people that were against it. But that's what we have to do as communities. We have to come together and say, hey, this is why I believe this and this is why I don't. People were emotional, but ultimately, even the people who were for children being in cages was like, yeah, this is too much. So we asked them at the end of every session to write down on a postcard what you want the Tennessee Supreme Court to do.
When it comes to juveniles, Tennessee has one of the harshest punishments in the country by sentencing children to a mandatory 60-year life sentence with eligibility for relief only after serving 51 years.
In 1999, at the age of 17, my brother Quentin Sanders received his sentence for an unintentional fatal car crash.
We didn't mean for that to happen. He didn't mean for it to happen. He was a kid.
I pray every day. I ask for like the family for forgiveness.
We're all deserving of redemption and a second chance. Instead, we think the best alternative for you is for us to lock you away, make you a number, and put you far away.
He got to do 51 years before he even made parole. And he might not get parole. I was really hurt. And I still am.
One of the arguments that prosecutors put forth is that these sentences are necessary, even though statistics strongly suggest that life in prison greatly reduces life expectancy.
It doesn't matter how good your health is to her. The injuries are okay. No one had health is 51 years in Tennessee prison.
So that was a trailer for the documentary. Again, you can watch that on YouTube. Why we were very strategic about why we named it Redeemable Son and why we took this angle. Tennessee and the people there claim to be hold to certain values, and it's the Bible Belt. And one of the strongest stories within the Bible is about forgiveness. And so we wanted to challenge that, to say, since you want to hold to your Bibles and to your guns, let's see if you really can forgive a child. Like, let's see if that's really in the core of you, or is that just talk? And so we coordinated, we showed it at churches, we coordinated with the faith-based community, and it really got the momentum going. And so in order to do a campaign to change the narrative around parole, you have to know your community. You have to know who has the power in your community and start building with those people. These are just some of the organizations. These are just some of the pictures of the screening and podcasts that we did across the state. This was a screening at a local theater in Knoxville. And we also invited the news out. We engaged the community. Anybody that wanted to come, our doors were open. We even had a preacher like as a moderator at one point, and he told the story of the prodigal son. We wanted to raise the awareness, and that's someone writing down how they feel about it afterwards. We had other community groups there sharing their information. This was at a church in Memphis where the actual DA came out, and a judge in juvenile court came out and watched it, and they both said that this was wrong and that this would not ever happen again under their term. We also had another person who just went to court yesterday. Did you find out how that turned out? Okay. Al Jazeera actually profiled him. He received life, and he was just in the room. Like he did not do anything. He received 16 years. At 16, he received 51 years, and he's still doing his time. He went to court yesterday. We've been traveling, so we're trying to figure out what that outcome was. This is James right here. He's part of community defense as well. And we're a unique organization because we do work in the city, and we also do work in the rural communities, and we have to come together to make these changes in Tennessee. This engaged the global media. You had outrage globally because when you put Tennessee's statistic up, it was like 8th globally as far as the sentencing. This is just some more things about Amir. Ultimately, after our advocacy, reaching out, the Supreme Court did rule that this was harsh and unusual, cruel and unusual punishment. And they changed it. Now it is, they have to do 25 to 36 years. It's not what we wanted, but it's better than it was. The problem that we are having now is that those now adults are going up for parole. And the parole is saying, no, we're not going to give you parole because you do not meet the requirements and because of the seriousness of the crime. And so we kept seeing that over and over. And James did some research along with some other people. And we were like, how can we challenge that ruling? And so what we started doing was having people to appeal those decisions. And in those appeal letters say that the seriousness of the crime was already considered as sentencing. So you can't use that as a reason. And also, if you're saying I'm not meeting the requirements, then tell me what to do to meet those requirements. And so now we've partnered with UT Law Clinic, and we're advocating at parole hearings. So at parole hearings, a person is having a family member there. They're sending an attorney, and then we're coming at as community. And I did notice that at the last parole hearing we were at, that they did give a reason. They did give him like things to do to meet his parole requirements. And at that hearing, that was one of the most favorable ones. They told him to come. They denied it, but they told him to come back within a year. But what we are seeing is that when you have that 3 attack approach, community, attorney, and family, that it's really hard for them to deny, especially when you're pushing them to say, if you're going to deny someone, you have to tell them exactly why, and you have to tell them what to do so they will not be denied again. Yeah, that's all.
Well, since I have the mic, I'll just say, I want to ask the question. How many of you have ever been in this room and went to court with somebody, whether it was a family member, a friend, a stranger, or you called a lawyer, or you called a judge, or you called your pastor and asked them could they call the lawyer on behalf of somebody? Raise your hand if you've ever done that. that was participatory defense. Sometimes we can do stuff and we don't have a name for it. I had done it for years. I didn't. And when I met this organization some years ago, I was like, well, I've been doing that. That's what I was doing. You know, you advocate for people for a win, but you don't put a name to it. Participatory defense have structured and put some boundaries into this work. So if you've done that, that's what you were doing all the time, participatory defense. And whether you know how to structure it like Imani has structured it, Debug has structured it, don't stop doing it. Do it all the more. Do it in a more excellent way. I have a guy who had never had a job in his life. He was an adult. He was a dad. He was a drug boy. That's all he knew to do was sell drugs. He was turned out as a kid. He started doing it. And he started, he had dreadlocks hanging all the way to, and he would hang around me and he calls me T. I'm Auntie. He came to me one day just broken. And you know how you can feel somebody going to tell you something that you don't want to know, but you don't know what they're going to tell you? And I was like, I don't want to know, because I didn't want to know something that could come back and I'd be questioned or having to take a polygraph test and I don't pass it because I knew something. So I was like, look, if you got any money, the only way I know to tell you to clean it, put some of it to some good, get you a legitimate business. To this day, fast forward, he had to go to court. He asked me to go with him. I took off from my job for a week, no pay, to go with this guy. While sitting in the courtroom in the toughest county in Mississippi, predominantly white county, this black boy got to go. With everything is tough in this county to this day. We sitting in there and they call us out and the judge say, you can go home. I'm sitting in there, no, I'm ready for a court here. I don't know. The judge said, the DA said, prosecutor said he had never seen anything like it, that this judge say this guy could go home. Decades later, this guy, he went and got a legitimate business, a liquor store. He wanted T to run his liquor store. I don't know anything about liquor. But I was with him. I was down with him. So I went in and I learned everything about his business. He never had to go to jail. Participatory defense. Injustice happens in empty courtrooms. Lack of support. So if you done that, you were in a courtroom where you might have been the only one. You provided participatory defense. And I'm telling you, this is one thing that I absolutely love, participatory defense, because we do it, but we don't know we're doing it. That's why I just put it in a layman's term that we can, I made that phone call. That was participatory defense. I sit in that courtroom. That was participatory defense. I supported this family while they were going through. I advised them. That was participatory defense. And I saw somebody raise their hand for a question for you, Imani. But I just wanted to throw my little piece in there with what participatory defense is really just that simple. You provided support and you showed up. You had a question?
Yes. I want to know whatever happened to. Sorry, I just wrote Redeemable Son. I can't remember his name. But did he get out? If he didn't, does he have? How much more time does he have to do?
So everyone that had that sentence, the Tennessee Department of Correction changed their parole dates. So he's still incarcerated. His parole date went from some crazy number till he has a parole date in 2028. And it keeps going down with good time. Almir had a life sentence plus something else, so his parole date is a little further out. But what has happened is now attorneys are, because of that ruling, are willing to go back into court and say, hey, we could try to ask for a resentencing. So they're both still incarcerated, but their parole date changed.
And now that his parole date changed, do you guys walk alongside him to prepare for the parole hearing?
Yes. Participatory defense is until you come home. And again, like she said, everybody does it. We just have organized it in a way, and then we have things and tactics that have worked that we can share with the community. Yes.
I'm curious to know is there an age range? I mean, is it 13?
For
the prison sentence?
14 in Tennessee. 14. You can get 51 years at 14 years old. Yeah.
But they're not considered juvenile.
No, they'll charge him as an adult. And what they actually did this year is they're trying to take away, like, where we could have consideration to, like, see if you were going to go to adult court. They want to take that away and just direct file now for certain what they call crimes. And so if it's something like, I think, like murder or like aggravated robbery or something, then they're just going to direct file them as an adult. Go ahead. Uh-huh. You.
How do people get that connection? Is it that their family has to reach out? Like, how does that work?
So we have people that write us from the inside, and if we have the capacity to take it on as an organization, we will, but we also try to encourage them to say, do you have a friend or a family? It doesn't have to be a family. It just be someone you know that could come in and just step in as your advocate. But, for instance, Amir, he didn't have any family that was willing to come. So we just took his case on as an organization. I put my email up there. Just reach out to me, and then we'll, yeah.
So I'm curious because you work in a lot of different jurisdictions. It sounds like, and we have been helping family and community to organize around parole hearings for our clients. We're a legal aid organization, and at first we were up against some barriers on what BOPP allows in. What they don't, we creatively got around it by producing a video.
Right.
In order to have these voices heard, so although family and community couldn't be in the hearing, they could be in the hearing in this way. Now they've stopped allowing the videos in the actual hearings, and they say that the board members will watch them ahead of time. I'm wondering if you've got to come up against these types of barriers to having the participation in parole hearings in other jurisdictions, how you've gone about troubleshooting.
Just like you said, everyone is different, and just being creative. Like, a no is not a no. It's just, okay, I need to go through another door. And, sometimes you have to, like, sue. A lot of, when they hear that word, they're like, okay, like, is this constitutional? Are you not allowing in all the correct evidence? Like, you have to be creative in that way. I think you're going to.
So I run a federal criminal defense clinic and a decarceration project where I train law students and work with law students on defending people charged with federal crimes and then trying to get people out of on sentences. And so one of the things over the years that I've had my students try to do is create a checklist of things that they can give to family members so that family members can participate. But it's really difficult because we don't want to put a huge burden on family that's not able to shoulder that burden. And I think handing someone a checklist does do that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just sort of curious whether or not there are best practices for defense lawyers to help involve community members and family members in the defense of their loved one. So that was my one question. And then my second one is we've talked a lot in my clinic about the problem with sometimes reifying economic and racial inequity when we involve community members, particularly in Iowa, where if we want community to go to the courtroom, we have to strategically think about what do we want that community to look like to the judge.
Yep, that's what we do.
And so it kind of feels gross in a lot of ways.
We have said white people go sit behind that black man.
Okay.
We have done that in Knoxville because that's what they need to see.
Yeah. I guess the best practices for that too are sort of mine.
I mean, it depends on your community. Our community, we're only 8 to 13%. So everybody that's in power is going to be white, and so we know that. And so we are like, we have students coming in from the law school, whoever. We're like, make sure sit behind this person so they can see that they have the community that looks like you behind them. As far as making that list, we have a problem with that too. As far as community, the best advice I think is not to give them everything at once. Give them 2 things to do. Once they accomplish that, like tell them to, let you know that they've done that, and then give them some more. And then I think it was one more, and I don't want to take up your time.
Yeah, I mean, I have a question. I think it could be for either one of you. I'm a lawyer, but I came into this space doing organizing defense work, and I find that the difference in participatory defense when someone is already incarcerated and you're fighting for them to come out versus when they are being prosecuted and going through the system is quite different. So I just wanted, feedback about that, what your experience has been doing participatory defense, trying to bring someone home versus trying to keep someone from going inside, and whether there's different best practices for both of them.
I mean, of course, it's harder when they're inside. I mean, that they're inside. But when they're inside, we just really have to rely on that family because, access to communication can be cut off. When they're out, they go, and we're like, look, you have to fight for your life right now. Like, you might hire an attorney, or you may be appointed one, but you might not be a priority for that person. You have to be a priority for you. And I do talk to those people who do have those life sentences. Like, when we changed the drug school zone, they were like, psh, whatever, y'all not going to do that. But then we had one person who really believed in it, and we were coordinating with him and working with him, and we actually recorded a phone call of him and how his charges were done and how he was done wrong. And we sent that to the Tennessee legislators. And we think that's what moved them. They did actually change that law. And so when they saw that example, they started getting motivated inside to say, okay, whatever this community group asks, we're going to do it because we've actually seen it change.
Now, the reason we collectively here is about realizing release. And realizing release comes in every kind of way we can get a win for release. Participatory defense is one of those. But the ultimate way in most prisons and states are parole eligibility. Getting parole to go home. And so that is the piece that I'm going to talk about is parole. And I am from the state that I told you that this country's consequential fights and battles hub on. We are what I call the epicenter, the hub, the ground zero of all this country's consequential fights and battles. Even in this presidential election, the big fight, Roe versus Wade, hubbed out of Mississippi. And if you don't have Mississippi at the top of your giving list, your whatever list, then we just going on with you. You got to have Mississippi, the deep south, on the list for any win in criminal justice and any other kind of win. Mississippi has got to be, and I say that for you to seriously take back to your state. Mississippi has got to be remembered. Because right now, Mississippi likes that it is the model for this country that we ain't going back. If you don't like the word slavery, when you hear it, when we talk about slavery, all of our ages in here, collectively, this was a system built before any of us. So when we say white, black, it's not referring to anybody, any of your whatever in this room, but all of our whatever is in this room. It goes back generations before we were ever born. So we got to uproot systems. And I'm not getting off track. I'm just building a story here that even when, if you know Deion Sanders, when he came to Mississippi, I put a bet on him that he would last 5 years. He didn't make it 3. Not because he didn't make change, he didn't do good. Mississippi collectively, that system, the good old boy, good Jim Crow system was not going to allow him to do what it is he was capable, very capable of doing. So I really hope you heard the panelists in the general session we just left with the system that we are really up against. Our organization, we have had 11 in the history of our organization. I'm formerly incarcerated. All I knew was the problems that I lived by the person that was sleeping next to me or above me. And I thought, I can get out of here and do something about this. I'm the oldest of 11. My grandmama taught me how to solve problems. My own hashtag is solutionist. Another hashtag is I'm an ingredient. None of us are the dish. Every dish that we eat consists of ingredients. If you leave out one, it's no longer that same dish, it's another dish. So I'm saying that for everybody in here to know that we just an ingredient. You ain't the dish. You need me and I need you. Saying that is, to get parole, I need participatory defense. I need defense attorneys. I need prosecutors who even know how to come at me to stop me for what I'm trying to defend. So we all got to figure this out. How do we work together for wins to realize the release of people that we're fighting for? Now, if you sold on your organization and you don't want to change it, then you may not be really trying to end mass incarceration. I started an organization, but I'm looking for that organization to fizzle out because I'm getting people out. So the people that I'm here talking about, the Mississippi 5. The Mississippi 5 has been put to, and that's what you see, and I'll let her, I don't know how to operate those, so that's not my strong area. The Mississippi 5 are 5 women who were caught in the 1994 crime bill. In the anniversary of that. So if without us advocating for these 5 particular women in Mississippi to get out, they just sit. And they have been sitting collectively almost 200 calendar years. One of them, and you can flip it, and now that we only have Zen booklets for 2 of them, because the campaign is just getting ready to kick off, and Tiffany, who has them in her hand, will pass them around so you can keep these to see 2 of them. You can flip again till you get to, okay, the first one you can stop. Loretta, the first one that's on the screen to the left here. She is the woman in Mississippi that has had the most set-offs than any woman that has come through the system. I think this is like 14 times she's been set off prison. She's been locked up over 3 decades. She's been set off. She's served over 3 decades. But I'm gonna go back to something before I continue with Loretta and these other 5. That one thing Carletta said on the main panel, that word shall. What needs to happen in this country, in every state, is a constitutional liberty interest law. Only a few states have it in the U.S. Without a constitutional liberty interest law, parole boards can just do whatever they want to do. If you have something in the law, it gives you the opportunity to sue, to take it to the court and get them to say, okay, why the law says this, but because we don't have one, the parole boards are using their power and position. And right now in Mississippi, we have a 100% Republican, all male -1 appointed parole board by a sitting Republican governor who has vowed that he never will give a pardon or a clemency. That is problematic. So we got to change our parole system in who sits on the parole board. Right now what they're doing is becoming the police, the arresting officer, the prosecutor, the judge, and the sentence. They everything. And nobody should be everything. And unless we change the system, these 5 women and others will continue to sit. And they had a bill, we had a bill 2795 put on the book that was passed that would grant more people parole eligibility. This new parole board has decided they're going to go back and bring in the community. It's like giving the courts the wins that they didn't get when these women went to court and others. But Loretta is the longest set off one. Anita, who didn't, she's from Florida, has a pending detainer in Florida, but she's been sitting in Mississippi nearing 4 decades. I served time with her, and she's still sitting there. I talk to her every single week, and she's still sitting there. A police officer was killed. She didn't kill the police officer. She didn't know a crime was going to occur. But because she was present, she got the same time. One of the family members have forgiven her. They show up. We having an event in October that one of the family members of the cop is going to be present, but she's still sitting in prison in Mississippi. Linda was classified as mentally retarded when she was young. And so which she shouldn't be incarcerated. She was again present. With the crime occurred, she's yet sitting. And will you flip the next one? Flip again. Scroll up. Well, anyway, the other one, there's another one in here, Lisa Kravitz. Lisa Kravitz, the crime is not going to change. She was on drugs, Lisa, on drugs, had a child, delusional, killed her own child. Her husband is now a sitting judge in another county. Every time she comes up for parole, he buys newspapers, the whole newspaper, and he replays the whole crime, the child when she was little, the whole bit. So she's up against a system in a system. That her husband is a sitting judge, and he opposes her every time she comes up for parole. And he circulates it on social media. And I don't know how I don't know if he has people that alters the algorithms where it stays on the forefront. So she's fighting that, Lisa is. Evelyn Smith, which that's a yesteryear picture of her, is now 82. When she was 80, gruesome crime that won't change. She has exhausted everything that she can in prison. When she was 80, this current parole board, she was already set off 2 years. In that 2-year set off, she got word, well, before the 2-year set off, she had got word she had made parole. She was coming to our reentry home, and it just didn't feel right, and the process wasn't going like I know it should go. So when she called one day, I told her, don't give any more of your belongings away. And she said, what is happening? I said, I haven't heard anything. I said, something just doesn't feel right. And because of that trust and having dealt with her for decades, she stopped. Well, she ended up getting papers that said she had a 2-year set off, but it had a line drawn through where she had actually made parole, and they put on the word presumptive, and up under that, I can't remember what the word was. And the parole board, this current parole board, told her, come back and see us when you're 85. She's 82, which means she got 3 more years before she's eligible to go back up for parole under this current parole board. What is there to rehab at 85? What is there to rehab at 80? Her health is failing. In the summer, she has to dress like an Eskimo because that helps her with the heat. Her skin has started to change pigment. So this is the kind of system we are fighting, the kind of oppression we're fighting in Mississippi. Mississippi, not just Mississippi, but this country. And hear me when I say it. If you don't like the word slavery, flip the coin. This country likes free labor. Free labor looks white. Free labor looks black. Free labor is us. Any of us that the system can get is what this country is built on. When they said, when you hear the words, let's make America great again. What is make America great again? America was built off slavery. So what are you saying? You want free labor. And the easiest way to get free labor in this country is incarceration. So we got to figure out, how do we realize release, whether that's restructuring parole boards, to participatory defense, using our defense, increasing investigations for crime, whatever it takes, we got to realize, for real, how do we realize release? But if we're comfortable in our organizations and we got to keep our organizations going for the sake of money, like the brother said sitting on the panel, then we'll find ourselves in a system where we're not trying to really do release. Because if you're going to really do release, it may mean releasing your organization, releasing what you do and finding something else to do. I want to realize release. I'm not concerned about our organization. Now, you would think that my state would really utilize us. We have almost 4 decades of zero recidivism. It ain't just what I say. You can go by the names of who, but am I at the table for them to say release? No. And these are 2 of our residents that I'm thankful for the MacArthur Center for Justice helping them be here with us. She's been with us 2 years, almost a year. Exceptional knowledge, assets, educators, tutors. But people don't, we like the system because the system keeps the money. Everywhere you look, there's something else being created to make money off of the incarcerated populations. And if we don't constantly challenge these systems, we are not going to realize the release of people. So we got to reimagine what, when they get home, looks like, so that we're not creating another system where you got technical violations that are sending people back, because we got to have empty beds. Don't keep incarceration going on. They got to fill a bed. Somebody losing money when a bed not full. Remember that. Every time there's an empty bed in prison, the next parole officer is looking how to fill that bed. Number 66743 gone home. So we got to bring somebody else in there to give a number to fill that bed. Private prisons the same way. Filled beds are what fill prison and fill pockets. So we got to figure out collectively, what do we do to realize release? And I will end it there, and just, anybody have any questions? Well, no, this is, those Zens, you can pay, only 2 are finished. You can look, so whatever you can do to help us highlight this information, highlight the release of these women, would be good. We got a guy right now that has been incarcerated 52 years. We are the single organization in my state coming against the parole board and the governor to get this guy out. We have advocates from all over the country. Native American appellate judge that is flying in the day that he's released. We were just told yesterday before we got here, he has a parole date of October the 10th. So yeah, his name is Donald Smith. So remember him in your meditation time, that October, that we're looking to go pick him up from the gate and walk him through the process of what freedom looks like on this side. So I rambled all off script, but you can ask any question. Or we can end it.
I have a question, and I'm just a photographer, but I have been so thoroughly educated and grateful for all the work that everybody in this room and at this conference does. So it's a two-parter. How do you both cope with, I'm assuming there might be like secondhand trauma or stress, and how do you help volunteers who want to get involved navigate that trauma and that stress?
You see the butt flat. I can help you here if you don't mind. I just came in. Oh, I'm allowed. Hi, my name's Stacy Williams. I didn't mean to get up here. But to answer your question,
I just got out this year. Just done 10 strong. And the world changes a lot when you've been in there for 10 years. Everything and everyone is different. This one right here, she was there for me. She was my mentor. Don't look at me. I don't want to cry. For 3 years, the first time they told me I was coming home. She was there for me when they reneged bringing me home and said that it was a, what was it, a something decision, I don't know, some excuse that didn't matter because it didn't change the fact that all of a sudden I wasn't going home. She helped me through that. Your family doesn't always answer the phone. She does. When I got home, she took me to Walmart for the first time. I mean, heck, I'm like, yeah, what do y'all mean this is going to be weird? She prepared me. I thought it was the silliest thing in the world. How is going in Walmart going to be hard? I got in there, and it was so large, so crowded, so big. Those are the things that she does. Without being prepared for that, I wouldn't have known how to react. I constantly froze. I can't teach again because I'm a felon. What does she do? She gives me a tutoring job. I get to do what I love by helping someone else. Those are the things she does. It's more than just, here's a bed. It's prepared you for what you're going to face, because if you are somewhat prepared, it's not so much of a shock. She loves us. She's there for us. It's about the little things, because those little things, those are the ones that stump people like me when I come out. I love you.
I love you more. The flip side of that, or the side by side of that, is I need you and you need me. It's that simple. I'm formerly incarcerated. I don't have the answers. I'm just crazy enough to do something. I'm crazy enough to try. You know, it's that simple. The guy that was on the street that never had a job in his life, that saw me as T, he still sees me as T to this day. And the boys on the street know me. For real, for real. When I leave, the cats on the street that you would run away from, pop your lock or click your lock. Which one? Click your lock. Lock yourself in. They know me. I know them. I know the homeless people in my neighborhood. I literally go out to the homeless people and ask them, can I snap a picture of you? What's your name? Can I get your social security number? If they get a little whatever with that, well, can I get the last 4 of it? What's your birthday? Project 2025 has a plan for our homeless population. I went to our homeless director. What is your plan for the homeless population? I don't have one. Well, I do. I know who they are. I know you by name, by your face, because we intentional with being just that simple and just that serious, because if we don't, we helping to feed the incarceration population. So to relax, you know, I just go to sleep sometime when my body says, I just go to sleep. I mean, I really do. I just go to sleep if I can't do it. Well, they say I don't sleep, but yes, I do. I just pull away from it.
So, yeah, we're not doing the right thing. But we are starting to have those conversations about liberation is healing. Resistance is rest. Dean is another person that's, big on mental health. And me and him are like actually looking how we can incorporate that into our organization. I've been doing this longer than James, but James is he's like Imani, and I don't want him to get to the place that I've gotten to where I've had to step back. And so as a movement, I just came from DC. It was the 30th anniversary of the crime bill. And even after the protest, they had an area with yoga mats and somatics. So we're trying to incorporate that now into the movement. That's the only way that we're going to continue to do that. Be able to fight.
You got to know your own limits. Organized self-care can be organized, but is it what you need? I went to an organized self-care that took us out to connect with nature, where they lost me. I came from the country, snakes, and I was like,
that wasn't relaxing, was it?
I was gone. I was traumatized. I was like, I was in New Mexico. And I was like, this scorpions, I saw TV, scorpions.
Oh, no.
And the guy said, well, no, it's not scorpions. Then I said, well, it's some bears. And they said, no. And we go with this guy, and the first thing he said, beware of black bears. I told you, I'm a country girl. But I'm just saying, we have to know, even when we sign up with self-care things, it's okay that if you don't want to do anything but sit in your bed with a bowl of ice cream, watch a movie. If that's what relaxes you, that's your self-care. And it's okay that it doesn't look like the professionals and the PhDs and the MDs say should look. If that's your self-care and it gets you to where you need, get your bowl of ice cream, flip, get the remote. It's that simple. We got to be real with us so that we're not entangled in somebody else's world and not getting the wind that wins it for us. And there have been times when I get pulled away from this, and sometimes some of the ladies know me so well, give me a cup of hot tea, I'm gone. Or get me in the chair, somebody in my hair, oh, I'm out. I'm done. It's over. Whatever I was working on, it's over. So to answer your question, and I'll turn it back to the floor.
I do want to say that I'm going to have to run fairly soon. And there's a list going around if you all want to connect. If you could put your information on there, and I'll get the picture of it, or I'll get the information somehow. And I don't know why that slide wasn't in there, but collectively, nationally, we've saved over 25,000 years for people doing the participatory.
I love the first hub I went to in Louisiana, I was like, what is this?
NOLA? Yeah.
No, I mean, just get involved with participatory defense.
Yeah, and that does not. Lives. Yeah, and that does not include 2023 numbers because we just now turning them in. But yeah, so yeah, good. Yeah. Thank you all. Huh?
We got a big women AIDS case last week too.
How many years do we save?
72.
And one person saved 72 years.
Yeah, can we stand up real quick and get a photographer to get a big picture, group picture? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm trying to sit by everybody. Oh, well, everybody stand, so I think that's the only way we can see everyone. Yeah.
I'm going to need this side to move in a little more. All right. Got your focus. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's get one more. 1, 2, 3.
Realize and release.
Let me, did you put your cell phone there so that I can do that? Okay. Yep, no problem.